Greetings, Cleveland, and welcome to Creative Focus, the show that illuminates some of Cleveland's most talented and creative artists across the genres of dance, film, music, theater, and visual arts. I'm your host, Cornell Calhoun III, and I am thrilled to have as my guest today on Creative Focus, the founder and director of the Cleveland Dance Project, Miss Anna Cerveny. Anna, welcome to Creative Focus, girl. Let's chop it up.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you're a native Clevelander, graduated from Strongsville High School, the Mustangs, the green and white. Do you know that I coached high school basketball for years at Glenville, and my first varsity game was against Strongsville.
Who
first
won?
one. I'm not going to say.
Okay, we won't talk about it.
It wasn't even close. So let's talk about your early childhood and dance. So what was the inspiration for you, to take up dancing?
Well, I think I started dance when I was about 3 years old. My parents just put me in as an extracurricular. And if I remember the story correctly, my dad actually pulled me out after a year because he said I wasn't practicing enough at the age of 3. My dad's Chinese, so it's that like Asian background, the very disciplined upbringing.
Right.
And then we moved to Strongsville when I was like 6, 7, and I begged him. I said, please let me dance and I will work so hard and do my best. And so then I was put into a studio in Strongsville. And from then I just went wild into dance. I really found my calling there. I trained more and more, and the rest is history, I guess. Yeah,
great history. So, what do you think the fascination with dance for you? What was it? What lured you to that?
Yeah, I think initially, I don't know. Probably as a kid, it was probably just the music, the costumes, the performance. Now as an adult, it's a little bit different because I think for me, it is an outlet for movement. It's an outlet for my emotional health. It's a connection point for where I can find a lot of like-minded people that we can move together and create together. It's really just keeps me alive in a lot of ways.
That's fabulous. So why do you like to teach? Why do you like to teach? What do you get teaching dance?
I actually don't teach as much as I used to. As a director, I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but I do teach occasionally. I think it's really great to help other people find the joy that I find in dancing and help them to kind of look at themselves and find where they can adapt, adjust, and make things work for their bodies. I also think as a physical therapist, with my background there, growing up, I had a lot of injuries. So teaching people now how to dance, I use a lot of my physical therapy background to say, hey, listen, make sure when you do this, that you're bending your knees this way so that we're preventing your kneecaps from falling apart later.
So what's the difference between a dance instructor and a dance choreographer, if there is a difference?
There is. So an instructor is someone who basically teaches dance, right? You teach in a studio, you teach in a company. Someone who choreographs will actually create movement. They will create a piece. They will create whether it's a short piece or a long piece, but they'll actually choreograph not only just one person moving, but lots of people moving around them. I think most choreographers are instructors, but maybe not all instructors are choreographers.
Okay. So what do you do if you have a client or a dancer who's struggling with a dance? And I ask that because I used to do musical theater and I was struggling all the time. So what do you do in your case?
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation a little bit, but typically I will drill it. So we'll break it down, we'll slow it down, we'll make sure you can see every movement before we put the music on, before we take it to tempo. So slowing it down and breaking it down will help. If it's something technical where it's okay, well, they're not getting it because they physically can't do it, then there usually needs to be some kind of adaptation made to the movement, because I'm a big believer that whatever you do on stage should look clean, it should look good, it shouldn't be a fancy trick just to be a fancy trick if they can't execute that trick correctly, because one, it's not pretty, and two, it's dangerous, to do something that your body's not ready to do.
So you have a BS in chemistry from Carnegie Mellon, Pittsburgh, and then you have a doctorate of therapy from Columbia University. Tell me how your profession has influenced your career in dance. How do the two work?
Yeah, I would probably say they go both ways. My profession influences my dance career. My dance career influences my profession. I think I was drawn to physical therapy because I grew up dancing. And physical therapy is all about movement, right? We are movement specialists. We look at your body and we tell you why your back hurts, and it's typically because you're moving in a certain way, or you're sitting in a certain way, or you're lifting in a certain way. So as a physical therapist, we're all movement specialists. As a dancer, I'm also a movement specialist in a different way. So I think the two influence each other very much. And as a physical therapist, I love to work with dancers because I understand how their bodies move, how they need to move, and then I'm able to break it down from my medical background. What can we do to make you move better and more efficiently?
So did you go into this profession knowing that it would enhance your dance career?
I went into this profession knowing that being a professional dancer is very hard.
Wow.
I didn't think that it was something that I could necessarily do and sustain myself with. So I went to PT school and I just continued to dance on the side while I was in school. Columbia is in New York City, so there's dance classes that are world class at every hour of every day, which is amazing and allowed me to continue to train and move while I was studying. So I think that dance has just been influential in leading me to physical therapy. And then as a physical therapist, I found my way back to dance and created Cleveland Dance Project because I was missing more dance in my life.
Yeah, you know what's amazing is I watched one of your routines, Seeking Serenity, and I have a clip of that I'd like to share with the audience.
Great.
Seeking Serenity. Let's take a look. Incredible work.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the Cleveland Dance Project.
Sure.
How is what's the audition process? How does that work?
So Cleveland Dance Project is an all-adult, all-level dance organization. Cleveland Dance Project Company is my 501c3 nonprofit dance and wellness company. It's a professional dance company. So the two are separate and different. Seeking Serenity, which we just saw, was from Cleveland Dance Project Company. So Cleveland Dance Project, being an all-level organization, the audition process is pretty open. We break it down by level. So even if you're an absolute beginner with no experience at all, we have a beginner audition for you where we just see, what you're basically capable of, how you move. how you perform, right? In an audition, it's also about what your energy is. And then we have levels all the way up to the advanced dancers who come and show us their best tricks and best artistry.
So, any given routine, how often do you rehearse? Is it dependent upon the routine and how long? No? Okay.
For Cleveland Dance Project, we put on 2 shows a year. Our next one's coming up on December 2nd. And so what we do is each piece will rehearse for 90 minutes a week. So it's 1 rehearsal a week every week, which I think is pretty doable in an adult schedule. More than that gets a little bit chaotic. But those 90 minutes are spent, doing a little bit of warm up, a little bit of technique practice, and then teaching the choreography, and then running and drilling that choreography and making a piece out of it for about 10 to 12 weeks, depending on the season.
And how many members are in the dance company?
So Cleveland Dance Project as the all-level dance company has roughly 180 dancers every season. It depends on the season, though.
Okay, so in one, but you wouldn't use all of those for a routine, obviously,
no.
right? So you would have, maybe it would be 20 people for one routine, or 30 for another routine, or do you use the same people?
Typically, we have, some routines have 6 people in them, and then some of them are a little bit bigger and have 20 to 30 people in them. Usually it's not more than 30 because there's just not enough space on the stage for all of those humans to actually move. But each show typically has about 20 to 24 pieces in it, and we allow dancers to be in up to 3 pieces. So some people are in 1, some people are in 2, and then there's a handful of dancers in 3.
Okay. Let's take another look at one of your projects, Change of Season.
Sure.
All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was an island. California dreaming, no, I'm set to win a day. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'll be safe and warm.
Great work, Anna.
Thank you.
So how has dance changed your life or influenced your life, would you say?
That's hard. Dance is such a huge part of my life, so I don't see it as something that's changed my life because it's just been there the whole time, you know? I think it's something that has really shaped me as a person and really made me who I am. As a kid, it taught me discipline and perseverance and the payoff of hard work, and it taught me how to take care of my body and how to continue to take care of my body. I think that as an adult, I never saw myself starting a dance company. That was never really in the plan. But when I moved back to Cleveland after school, I was really searching for a place to dance that was welcoming to adults, that felt challenging for someone like me who had a significant dance background, and it didn't really exist. So I thought, well, I'll just make it myself and see what happens, and then all these people came out of the woodwork to join me. So it's now such a huge part of my life. So I guess it's changed my life in that it makes me work a lot more than I ever thought I would. You know, I work full time at university hospitals. I also am now working pretty much full time between running a dance studio and also being the executive director for a dance and wellness nonprofit. So it is really my whole life.
So what do you think your greatest strength as a dancer is?
Well, I guess as a dancer, it would be how hard I work. If you had caught me 10 to 15 years ago, I'd tell you it was my flexibility or my, like something else. But at this point, into my 30s, I'm starting to feel like, the technical stuff, the tricks and the flexibility and all of that starts to go a little bit out the window, or it gets a little bit harder to maintain anyways. It's doable, but it's harder. So at this point in my career, I'd say it's probably the dedication to the dance art itself and my attention to detail, probably. But as the director of a studio, it's definitely more the attention to detail and the ability to organize things.
I know this is a difficult question for an artist, but because people ask me this all the time, mm-hmm. Do you have a project, something, a dance routine that you think is just the epitome of great work for yourself? Or do you look at all of them and just say, hey, Anna knocked it out the park?
No, not all of them are knocking it out of the park for sure. There's definitely moments of, oof, I was tired. I don't know. I mean, I think as of now, it's fresh in my mind too, but Seeking Serenity is definitely one of my favorite pieces that I've created. And I can't take all the credit because I did co-choreograph that with our company's artistic director, Megan Gertz, too. So it was a collaboration.
Okay, so take us on a journey.
Sure.
So what's the first thing you do when you decide that you're going to create a routine? Is it something that you see? Is it something that a dream? Is it, something that comes before you, or it's just, innate? You just have that ability to create, Usually as a writer, something I see or some relationship triggers me to write something. So is it the same in dance for you or no?
It depends. I would say that's very piece dependent. Typically for me, I listen to a lot of music, and then if something kind of catches me, then I start to think about that, listen to it more, listen for the story behind the words, listen to the backbeats, the harmonies, and just like visualize movement first and see, like, sometimes movement will, in your mind, all of a sudden triggers, like, I see a lot of running, or I see a lot of circular movement, or I see some stillness, So I think for me, it's very music driven oftentimes. When we have the budget and the ability to hire someone to write for us, like we did for Seeking Serenity, so that's quite rare because it's expensive. Right. But when you have that ability, then it's exciting because you can go from it at it from a different angle. So you can kind of start with, what am I feeling? What am I drawn to? What do I want to what story do I want to tell? And then you can start to think about the movement behind the story that you want to tell and kind of write almost like a storyboard, which is what we did for Seeking Serenity, where I brought our musician and composer, Sean Pack. I brought him, like, here's the story we're trying to tell. This is kind of the storyboard behind it and where we want the journey to go. And then he kind of took that and wrote the music for us. So it's very dependent.
Okay. Talk a little bit about Unleashed.
Mm-hmm. So for Unleashed, that was a song that I was really drawn to for a long time. It's Crystallized by Lindsey Sterling. And I just saw in my head, like, I saw the movement, I saw the color scheme, I saw kind of what was happening for a lot of the dance. And then as I had these dancers in front of me, we played around with some things. We played around with, like, moving this way, running this way, rippling this way, and just trial and error too. There's a little bit of that in the studio to see what works, what satisfies visually, what feels a little bit off.
So let's take a look at Unleashed.
Okay, great.
Unleashed, Anna Cerveny.
I pissed myself. 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 I
Quick question. How difficult is it to choreograph something that you're in? Or do you need that co-person to the eyes to watch? How does that work for you?
It's hard. It is really hard to choreograph something you're in. On the one hand, I love dancing in things that I am choreographing in. I love dancing in things that I'm choreographing because it's my own movement, right? So it's stuff that feels good in my body that I am putting out into the world. So it's really fun to dance my own choreography, but at the same time, it's tricky because you have to step out a lot and look at what's happening. So it's nice to have an understudy or someone who can step in for you.
I was just going to ask you how you did that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's nice to have an understudy. We don't always have an understudy. So then sometimes it's just like, okay, I know I'm over there. That's my hole. So it's definitely more challenging to do. And then when you get to tech rehearsals and dress rehearsals, being like, when do you decide to step out and watch versus being on stage and marking your own space and knowing where you're going. So it definitely is a challenge, and one that I think a lot of choreographers don't do for that reason, because it does make it harder to make sure that you are producing good work. But I think especially as a younger dancer, it's really appealing to be able to create and perform at the same time.
You were the physical therapist for the show WarHorse,
Yes.
the Broadway show.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your duties? What did you do? Did you have to...
So my job as physical therapist was to do a lot of preventative maintenance work, basically. You know, as a performer of any sort, whether it's stage or dance, you are wearing and tearing on your body a lot, you know. Especially in a Broadway show, you have 8 shows a week. You are doing the same thing 8 times a week. In WarHorse, it was very physically demanding because many of those actors were in those horses. They're like big aluminum frames where they are within it and kneeling and sometimes carrying a person on their back.
Wow.
And run around stage for 3 hours. So it was a lot of maintenance work and just making sure that things that started as aches and pains didn't become real injuries. If anyone got injured during a show or in rehearsal, I was there to provide whatever emergency care needed to happen within my capabilities. And then also like giving people exercises and other things that they could do to try to keep their bodies healthy while they were on tour too.
How long were you on tour?
Just for a year.
Wow,
yeah, it was a long year. It was a good year. It was a great year, honestly.
So is that the practice for most shows that have an extraneous movement and dancing? They have a physical therapist
I
there?
think it is more common in union shows that have bigger budgets.
Bigger budgets,
Yeah.
okay.
Other shows will sometimes partner with therapists in different cities as they tour so that they know, like, oh, I can always go to this person in Cleveland, I can always go to this person in New York, and that way they kind of have some relationships with those therapists. But it's unfortunately not super common for many shows because not all of them are quite that big.
So, Anna, what is your goal? What is your dream when it comes to dance? What would you like to accomplish?
That's a good question. I just opened our studio, our physical home studio, in July. So prior to that, we've been around for 6 years, and we were just renting from other studios. So just having opened the studio, my dream is really to make it into kind of an adult wellness space, not just a dance studio, but a fitness studio, a wellness studio, a community gathering place where people can just come, and maybe you start by taking a yoga class, but then you end up like having a conversation with a friend, and then you go out for lunch with them afterwards, you know. So I really just want to make it into a movement and wellness space that feels like very communal. Because I don't think, the beautiful thing about Cleveland Dance Project is, while I created it and it might be my company, it doesn't really feel like it's just mine, because I've been working full time, and as it's been growing and becoming more hard to manage by myself, all the people that have found Cleveland Dance Project have come out of the woodwork to really step up and help me in every way they can. And I think with that community feel, it's always felt like their project as much as it is my project. So I really just love the aspect of coming together to create something beautiful, and I think that's what I really want this studio space to be, is just like a space where we can create together and grow together. So I think that's my primary goal right now. My other goal as a dancer is just to keep my body moving and not hurt myself while I'm dancing. That's always the goal.
I think you're going to reach both of those goals.
I hope so.
You will. So what's next for you, Anna? What's going on next?
What's next? I mean, the studio is a big focus right now. We're building up our classes. We've got dance classes every week for every level of dancer. We've got fitness classes for all abilities. We have a wellness series that kind of switches every 2 to 3 weeks with a different topic for the community, not just for dancers. Our big thing right now is our show coming up in December that we're rehearsing for. And
what's the title of that?
It's just Cleveland Dance Project's Showcase. Yeah. Okay. Season 12 is in December at Berea Mid-Park High School.
Okay.
So that's the big thing we're prepping for right now. And then for the Dance and Wellness Company, the 501c3, just continuing to try to build and outreach more. We do a lot of community outreach as well, where we kind of come to different community organizations and just bring them mindful movement programming, where we kind of show, like, you know, anyone can move, anyone can boogie or groove a little bit, right? Like, you don't need to be trained to enjoy movement. And just telling people, like, when you do boogie a little bit with your friends, like, it feels good and releases endorphins. It helps us physically and mentally. So it's just a good thing to just spread the joy of movement throughout the community. So we're working on expanding that programming too.
So if someone wanted to learn more about the Cleveland Dance Project, where should they go?
So for the fitness, dance, wellness studio, Cleveland Dance Project, it's clevelanddanceproject.com.
Okay.
And then for the nonprofit dance and wellness organization, it's cdpcompany.org.
Okay, can you give me those once again?
Yes, clevelanddanceproject.com.
Okay.
And then cdpcompany.org.
Okay, and they can get all the information.
All the info's on there, and then both of those organizations are on Instagram and Facebook too. So.
Now, do you post your audition notices on those websites as well?
Yep, audition notices. We'll post class information, any like events that are coming up. All of that will go on there.
Okay. Anna, thank you. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure.
It sure has. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'd like to thank my special guest, Anna Cerveny, for hanging out with us today on Creative Focus. So that's it, Cleveland. We're out. But remember, a true artist is not only inspired, but inspires others. I'm Cornell Calhoun III for TV20 and Creative Focus. Until the next time becomes our time, be well, be safe.